Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. As you know, currently I'm interviewing inspiring persons and talk with them about purpose. And I'm really excited because today I can interview Brigitte Münch. She lives in Zurich and she is a transformational coach. And she says about her coaching that it's about creating space for balance between the life we live and a joyful success in business. And her business is called Blue Mountain. And I will link to her profile of LinkedIn in the descriptions below. And I'm very excited for this interview. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's inspiring and have a lot of fun with it.
Okay, I am very happy to have Brigitte with me today for the next live interview in my podcast, The Next You, where we talk about personal transformation. And Brigitte, we came together because we are both coaches, but you did the purpose quiz that I offer. And I was so astonished because you were the absolute highest rating purpose person in this quiz. And therefore I approached you and said, we got to talk about this. So maybe first things first, maybe tell me a little bit about how did you get to this point where you have so much clarity about your purpose? Like, what was your transformation towards it?
Yeah, well, maybe I should add that title, right, to all my business cards, profiles, and so on. So the purpose champion or something.
Yes.
No, I always like these sorts of questionnaires and quizzes because it gives you some insight about yourself. So thank you for offering that. I can recommend to everyone to do it. My journey, it's a journey. So maybe that's the first point to say, right? It was not an overnight transformation and I woke up one morning and knew exactly what my purpose is. It was really a journey. I started as a lawyer in private practice and in corporate environments, big corporations, multinational companies, in the tech legal area. So not only the environment was quite left half of the brain driven, but also the subjects I had to work on. So I negotiated big contracts. The projects were very complex. I thought the whole day, right? I was really somehow caught, I would say, looking back, in my left half of the brain. Very rational, structured, straightforward. And at one point in my life, I realized, I'm so exhausted. Somehow I lose my excitement, I lose my joy. I still like meeting the people in the office, right? I like the projects, but something is missing. And it started as a little niggling feeling. And I didn't pay too much attention to it in the beginning. I had moved to another country in the meantime. I lived in Sweden for a couple of years. I was not really happy in Stockholm also. Nice city, but I had a hard time to get my foot on the ground. So my whole social environment was not really inspiring. So
Did you hope at that time when you, for example, changed to Sweden, that something would change for you? Was it already out of an awareness? Oh, maybe that's going to solve my problem of feeling, exhausted or something like that? Or did that come later?
Maybe that was a part of my thinking, also to get out of this used environment in a way, right? I was so used to Munich and my space and my friends there and my company that I thought, well, maybe if I just break out of this whole environment, maybe some other things may change. Maybe not so consciously, but subconsciously, I'm sure that was also something which led me to that path.
Okay.
That's my curiosity. I was always curious, right? And as a lawyer, it's not so easy to work abroad. So I took the chance, and I had a certain picture of the Nordic countries also. I thought everything is so relaxed and people are so happy. And partly true, right? Of course, I mean, as always, when you go for vacation somewhere and you live somewhere, that's a total difference. I mean, we all know the C'est la vie or the Dolce Vita in Italy, and yeah, when you live there, it's much more challenging.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so you ended up in Sweden, and you said Stockholm is also very busy. So how did that trigger you then moving forward?
Yeah, I worked, I mean, I just continued working much too much also in Stockholm. And given that I didn't have this social environment also, this network of friends, no family in Sweden, I worked even more. And so it was totally counterproductive in a way. I was even more exhausted. And at a point I was so tired of being tired. I just thought, this can't be it, right? I mean, there must be something else in life. And I started thinking about it. And when my company wanted to send me to another country, right? I said, okay, wait a second, is that really what I want?
Okay.
And that was the first time I thought, I need some time for myself. I need to do something. I'm so unhappy. And I wouldn't say about myself that I'm an unhappy person from my personality, from my character, right? And I worked together with a coach. And I remember that session where she, I wouldn't say screamed at me, but she was very clear in her language. And she just said, so what do you want? What do you want? And that was a moment where I thought, shit, I don't know.
That was the confrontation with that void, that emptiness. There was no answer for you at that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So and that was a big.
Yeah, I had somehow built up my identity over my job, right? And my role. And yeah, I had a good job. It was well paid. And what I really enjoyed was working with the people. I worked with people across all Nordic countries, across Europe. I had team members in the Czech Republic and in India, so culturally very, very diverse. I found it super exciting to find ways to improve their communication also and their collaboration.
Yeah.
And that was something which really fascinated me. And I also liked negotiating. Meeting people, understand where they come from, understand their thinking, and where do they want to go, and how can we find a common ground and a solution which works for both.
And that's an interesting point, because I observe, not only based on my story, but on many of the clients that I have, they are in this situation, they work, they are busy. Sometimes they're so busy that they don't create any kind of awareness if they are really feeling well or not. And then comes a time where they might get into exhaustion, or they are switching jobs for the hope of inviting something else. And maybe they are confronted with the same reality. But then they always say, you know, the actual job offers great opportunities, you know, as you just described it, in this international environment, and also the task you do, like negotiations and so on, that might be excitement, or you can use some of your strength and things like this. And then still, although the skill set and what the job might offer in terms of colleagues and tasks might be appealing, something is still on top there that doesn't work. And what do you think is that?
Well, I think in every job you have parts you enjoy and parts you don't enjoy. And then the question is, what are you spending on which part do you spend more time on? And for me, it was this whole legal part, which didn't really interest me, to be honest, right? Really the technical legal stuff, working on documents, right? Switching commata and single words around and make it somehow fancy. And then working in such a big corporation, you had I don't know, hundreds of policies and escalation procedures, and I felt so limited, so narrowed down. There was no space for my own creativity.
Yeah.
And you have to follow the rules all the time, you know, when something is not really according to the policy, which doesn't really matter in that specific case, right? Because you're working towards a solution which works. But then you have to escalate and other people have to come in, and it takes time, and the client doesn't understand why it takes so much time. And that frustrated me so much. So I felt so limited in my box. And I had the feeling I need to break free from all of this.
Okay, but you made this step. I mean, one of the steps is you went to a coach. So what was the trigger? Did you have a particular event, or was it rather, I don't know, one Wednesday evening you were just sitting at home and saying, this needs to stop, I need to do something about it because I just don't, I feel so exhausted? Or what made you do that?
It was the point in time. So when my company said they want to send me to another country, and that was Romania, and I think Bratislava is a super nice city, but I also knew, okay, I'm in my, I was 43 at that point in time, right? So I would like to live at a place where I potentially grow old. And I knew that was not Bratislava because my family far away, I didn't speak the language, right? Totally different culture again. And I didn't know what I want, and I had this knot in my brain. I couldn't get any clarity on what I want and how I can approach my exhaustion, if you want to put it like this.
Wow.
Thought,
so
okay,
if we see those two sides, all this way they brought you to this standing in front of this void, this emptiness of what do I really want, up to being the highest scorer of the purpose quiz. The quiz is just obviously a symptom of you made a journey towards really knowing what you want, what you need, what you want to express, and so on. So tell us then, what happened next? How would you describe how you moved on? Because it feels like, wow, you know, how to move forward out of such a situation.
Well, it sounds big maybe, and yeah, in the end, it is an essential question in your life, right? But I wanted an answer to this question, what do I want? And I decided, I went traveling a bit, so I pulled the plug, I left the company without knowing what comes next, to have that space for me. So I created space for myself and for my thoughts and my feelings. And I knew I will not stay in Stockholm. It's not my place to be. Also from the whole energy, I don't know. I just didn't feel well there. And I was missing the mountains. So I'm a passionate mountaineer, even though I grew up in northern Germany, right, without any mountains. I'm a passionate mountaineer. And then I decided for a location. I said, okay, first thing I decide is where do I want to live? Really the physical location. And that's what brought me to Switzerland.
So you picked location first.
I picked location first. Yeah.
You took a time out. You knew you don't know what you want or what you need at this moment, but okay, I allow myself to have space and just be with myself. And I go into the places that nurture me.
Exactly.
And that led even to the decision of, hey, it's not about the work first and where it's going to send me, but it's about where I choose this place where I'm in an energetic field, like the mountains.
Yeah.
So that's the decision you took first.
Yeah, I took that first because, and that was right. I mean, I didn't know in that moment, right? But I needed inspiration. I said before, I somehow had lost my creativity. Right? I was in this little box, and there was no space to breathe, to create something, to think about things which could be right in my life. I always say I felt like a human doing, not like a human being. I was just
that's a nice term,
running in the hamster wheel, and yeah, it it was really the space I needed.
Yeah.
That's why I took that decision first. And I also knew when I'm up there in the mountains, and I look out of my window now because I see the Alps over there. It changes my perspective and it changes my views. So when I climb up a mountain or I cycle up or I take my skis or whatever it may be, and you are up there and you have a different view and you see what's possible, right? It's not that mountain which is in front of you, but you see what's behind it. That opens up things for me personally.
Yeah. Okay. I have a lot of respect for that decision, because on my journey, when I stopped working in Mercedes and then I came back to Europe after being assigned to China for 5 years and so on, I had this question with me: where do I want to live? And everything that I spit it out, for example, mountains, I also love them, still brought up like a million places on earth. And so I was overwhelmed by the question, and my strategy at that point was I just delegated this away, and I said life is going to show me. And it was also a way of getting to a place. But that is so great that you were able to choose a place, and that could become a new starting point for you. Yeah. Okay, so you went there, no job, still not knowing probably exactly what is it that you want, or how can you translate it to a job and also to an income or something. So tell us what happened then. What did you do?
Well, I needed a job quite soon, right? Because you can stay, I think, 3 months in Switzerland without a job, without having a residency permit. And it was clear, okay, I need a job quite soon. So what I did, I said to myself, okay, the place comes first, and then because it's easier, I will start with a legal job, but only temporary. See how the market here works and what is needed and what my next step is in terms of my profession and my work.
Okay, great. So you had this one clear priority of location, equaling energy, and still then obviously out of the necessity you entered into a legal job.
Exactly.
But then you had the awareness that something need to be changed, and okay, so tell us how you managed basically that kind of change, how you started with it then.
Plus I consciously chose temporary jobs, so just project work, because I didn't want to come into this hamster wheel routine again. I thought, okay, so when I have half a year maternity leave cover or whatever it may be, then I have this restriction and I'm not so much into that company, into that hamster wheel, into all their processes. So that helped me. And I just started my own personal development journey. I really must say I became a junkie. I love to think about how we are thinking and how to detect patterns in my own thinking, how I grew up, right? My environment of the family and the very rural area I grew up in, very Catholic. And I understood so many things, and I also understood I can change that. And that was such an inspiration to me. I decided to explore more.
So how can I imagine? You had this job, now living in Switzerland at that point of time, and then in the evenings you were just reading books, watching videos, and whatsoever in terms of this kind of self-inquiry process. Was this kind of the starting point for you to get into that area?
Yes, plus I started a coaching certification course.
Okay, so how did it come that you said, how did you set that intention of coaching? What was the anchor towards that?
I understood that I need to take on responsibility for myself and not just follow others' expectations and what others may expect from you and think is right for you. I understood, okay, I followed a path during the last 20 years, which was not really mine. I need to find that path, and I work with coaches, but I also find it so fascinating that I want to learn the techniques for myself, but maybe also sometime in the future for others.
Okay, so you had this intention, this is going to be something that will help you in your journey.
Yeah, that was my first intention. Yeah.
And maybe as a second intention, we'll see over time if that is something you can translate into a job or not. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought it's useful in any case, right?
Yeah.
Because I like to work with people, and when you work with people, it's good if you have some coaching skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And what happened then? Because how did you then find your purpose, and how would you define it right now? So how did that all come to an end? Not because obviously we're all still in the process, but yeah, tell us how it then turned out for you.
Well, I observed myself much more consciously, and I observed that I was coaching people all the time, annoying them sometimes with my coaching and my uncomfortable questions. And at one point I was just so bored by this legal work that I knew, okay, I have to pull the plug here. And then a very personal thing happened a year ago. Yeah, it would have been her birthday today. So I had a nanny, an old nanny, and she knew me since I was born. And we had a very, very special relationship and very close. She lived in the north of Germany, and wherever I was, I tried to take care of her. And she passed away a year ago, and I had really, I was very lucky that I could be with her during her last days. And I saw her shrinking in her bed, you know, becoming really fragile, like a little bird. And it was so clear to me, we cannot take anything with us, but we can leave so much behind. So what is it what I want to leave behind? And it was clear it's not another contract, it's not another data privacy concept or whatever it may be. I knew I want to make an impact on other people's lives, and I want to help them connect with themselves and find their own unique path. And really, I stopped everything in that moment. And again, I went into nature. So I spent the last winter as a ski instructor for kids and teens up in the mountains in a village where I learned skiing myself more than 40 years back. And it was just so, beautiful. Being out there in nature, knowing you are just a little part of this world, but you can make an impact on others. And kids are the best coaching clients you can have, because they give you direct feedback. They let you know immediately if they like it or not, if they are scared or afraid, or if they totally overdo things, right? It's brilliant. It was brilliant work. I just loved it. And that was
but then again, a bold move. You left everything that you had at that point in Switzerland. Again, you left it behind and said, okay, for the winter now, I'm going to be a ski instructor. So you basically had a hobby, making it like an interim job, but then you were surrounded with mountains and with kids.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I knew this is what I want to do.
Okay. So how did you not turn out to become a full-time ski instructor or mountaineer, but then turned out to be a coach?
Well, I'm not good enough to become a full-time ski instructor, and you still have to do something over summer, right? So all ski instructors have a second profession. And I knew it's really this working with the people and helping them find their way. What do they really want? So I came back to the question I asked myself 5 years back.
Okay. Yeah, I see that also as a pattern. Many people just say, I work in a big corporation, and I felt the same as well. What I really love about my work is working with the people. but then the whole environment either doesn't really let us to go as deep as we wish for, or the work is limited to 2 to 5% of our time, and that is simply not enough. And many times then we only believe, but well, legal things, or for me it was working in big corporations, it's the only thing I can do. It's the only thing I ever did.
Yeah.
And then to really allow us to let go, create space, as you said, in whatever way, and start the self-inquiry of what do we really want, will lead us to our strength, and will lead us to a way of translating this back into a job. And I see many people that try to, I'm not happy in this job, and I try to go to a different company, or I even tried a different job, but they're jumping from one job to another. And I have the feeling this going into the space, for you it was, let's say, mountains in a sense, but to go into a space, also into the mental space first, and inquiring is way more powerful, and then maybe trying to translate it back into a job.
Exactly.
That this is like a transition that is more powerful.
And really understand life is not a rehearsal. So our time is limited. So why do I not make the best out of it and have some fun on the way? And as a lawyer, I didn't have so much fun. I have to admit it here.
Okay. Now, I have two more questions. Now you're offering transformational coaching, as you say. And I can sense already, because you went through a transformation yourself. It was not just a classical evolution of, this job brought me to this job, and guess what, 10 years later, I ended up here. No, it was really, you pulled the plug and you reset yourself, and that is a transformation. How would you describe what is the transformational coaching on one side, and let's say a usual coaching on the other side? Because coaching obviously is a big term, but how could we differentiate that or understand transformational coaching?
I think it's really the time frame which makes the difference. So achieving a long-term change, a sustainable change, requires that you go deeper, really, and come back to your roots in a way. So when you think about normal coaching, right, you have a situation where you are stuck in, where you need new perspectives. It's a bit quicker, I would say, a short-term solution. Of course, also directed to something which you can automatize. But a transformation takes longer. As I said before, right, it's, at least for me, it was not the overnight transformation. So I woke up one morning and knew exactly what I wanted. That was not the case. So I needed to take step by step. And as I said before, I wanted an answer to this question, what do I really want? And realizing that I was not on my path. I wouldn't say on the wrong path. I don't regret anything, but it was not my path. Requires much openness and willingness on your side, because you ask yourself very uncomfortable questions, and you have to face yourself. And that's not always nice, I realize. And the transformation takes longer if it should be something more sustainable. And it doesn't always have to be a super big transformation, like in my case, a totally new job and a new country, new environment. You can also make little transformations in your working life, which are still sustainable. You know what I mean? You can also stay in a corporate environment, but create the space for you there.
And I guess that's what I'm heading towards, is what would you recommend to persons that are in a job, maybe already for 5, 10, or even 20 years, they work in a context, but they feel like it's more and more becoming an empty shelf, and they are missing something, or they feel exhausted and they don't know how to handle it. What would you recommend those people? What could they do, or what do you want to tell them?
Very practical. What helped me a lot was writing down what I was thinking about my job in the corporate environment, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy. And I noticed in the beginning, I could only say what I didn't enjoy.
Okay.
Right? Very often the case when you feel you need to change something and you just know what you don't want anymore. But write that all down and then think about the opposite. What really brings you joy? And if you do it on a regular basis, if you do it daily, and that just has to be 5 minutes in the evenings, what did I enjoy today? I took a nice walk, or I had good food, or I had a nice conversation. And then over the time, you will see what brings you joy and how to start.
Okay.
What really matters.
And that's,
to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings you deeper and deeper, always more layers disappearing, and you're digging deeper in what really fuels you with energy.
Yeah.
And then you might come to a moment where you can say, this is how I translate it into a different action. And maybe it's a different position in the same company. Maybe it's a different way of approaching the business. Maybe it's a different role you're taking. But maybe there's also a complete unplug, reset, or whatever is needed. But just to connect, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is another exercise, I'm sure you know that one, right? If you think about the end of your life and think backwards, right? You can imagine your own funeral or your 80th birthday, or whatever it may be. What do you want other people to say about you, and what do you want to have achieved yourself? What are the crazy things you never dared to do, but you would love to do them? So that helps.
Yeah. I remember always this also English saying of better the pain of discipline than the pain of regret. So put in, and even 5 minutes a day, it's a lot of minutes in a year, and get started. And usually when we are so exhausted, as I understand based on your story, it is because we are not connected to what really drives us. And we might have been on this kind of train in this kind of way for many, many years.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is for me also. So, I'm totally identifying myself with your story as well, because I have also been in that world for almost 20 years. And it was serving me in many ways. But at some point, I just reached this moment of saying no. Yeah. And it can happen. And then not being afraid and starting this process, this transformational process. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Very powerful story. And very personal story, Brigitte. And I hope it is inspiring the people out there to understand that it's never too late to start with a change. It's never too late to inquire about ourselves. It's never too late to learn and focus our energy on ourselves, and be very open. It doesn't mean that we have to leave everything behind, but each and every one of us is unique and need to find that back to the roots, as you said.
Yeah.
And then being at the roots, we can reassess of what is it that really brings us joy.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. That's a beautiful message out of your story.
Yeah, and I can just say it changed a lot for me. Not only am I myself much happier, but I must say also my relationships have changed. So it's my parents, for example, who are quite old now in the meantime. So my family, my friends, being grounded in yourself or knowing yourself much better also enables you to be a better friend and a better partner. So that's something really, I don't have this hassle all the time in my life anymore.
Yeah. So let's say being triggered by job says, okay, I'm gonna self-inquire and see what I can do. But then that self-inquiry basically means you are you are going through all aspects of life sooner or later, and you're reassessing, how does that fit to me, to the new understanding of myself, and what can I do about it? Relationship with parents, friends, brother, sister, whatsoever. And that will just increase our life quality again and again and again.
Yeah, and I mean, we spend so much time with our work, so of course it has an impact of the other areas in our life as well. So it's really worth, to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Start somewhere. I think that's simple, but it is exactly that. Yeah, there's no this one point, but just get started. And have the courage to start.
Get started. And one thing I would like to add is really take action. So I was sitting on my sofa thinking about life for quite a time, couple of weeks, and then at one point I was, okay, nothing will really happen and change if I don't do anything. I have to try things out. So
that's great. That's the self-empowerment mode, right? I can change. I'm responsible. I'm empowered. So let's get started and bring some action, because only then can we also prove that something can change. And not victimizing us in terms of, I cannot get out of the system, but really taking some actions. I think that's great. So bring ourselves into a mode of awareness and try to translate it into action. Great. Brigitte, thank you so much for your time. It is again a very personal story. I identify personally a lot with it. And thank you for sharing that so openly. And also, it's so understandable what brought you into coaching and what brought you into transformational coaching in particular. And for all the listeners or whoever seeing this, I will link to your profile on LinkedIn where people can find you and maybe start a conversation with you.
Happy to connect.
Exactly. And I will put also a link on the quiz.
Please do
so people can do the quiz and see where they are with their purpose. You definitely found your purpose, and it's great to see you in this state, and it's great to see that this change is possible. And I think out of that and with your story, you are a great example to so many, and I hope it will inspire a lot of persons out there. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. That was fun. I could talk an hour more.
I agree.
But we can do another episode.
Why not? Let's do that another time then. Okay, Brigitte. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Bye.
Bye.